Welcome to Regardless of with Nichole Wesson. One of the things I promised in a previous episode is to talk about the difference between leadership and management because unfortunately we tend to, by default, think leadership is management and that management is leadership. There are some similarities, and to be honest, there are some leaders who manage well. There are some managers who have the title of managers, but they operate more as a leader. And it's great for the people that follow them. But too often, let me just say it like this, we're misinformed. I know that's harsh to say, but we are. We're misinformed on what leadership is and what management is and the roles that they play in our lives, both personally and professionally. Now, to talk about leadership, I want to take you back. I want to take you back to my first job. I want to tell you this story because I really believe it's a perfect example of the difference between leadership and management. I was a 10th grader, 15 years old, and I worked for McDonald's. I learned so much from that position, and I was in it for almost 2 years. I was introduced to this position through my mom. I think she wanted me to work, side note. But my mom knew the franchise owner. This McDonald's was owned by Ed, and it was a perfect example of one of the phrases that my mom would tell me often. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Under Ed, we had a restaurant manager, and that was Linda. Linda was responsible for the operations of that particular store. Not all of his stores, if I remember correctly. She was responsible for everything, administration and operations. Under Linda, there was an assistant restaurant manager, Randy. That was Linda's right hand. Under Randy, there were several assistant managers, and those assistant managers, I like to call them shift managers because they worked one of 3 daily shifts at the restaurant. You had the opening shift, you had midday, and then you had the late afternoon evening shift, which is also the closing shift of the restaurant. Just thinking about that hierarchy, you have Ed at the top as a franchise owner, Linda as restaurant manager, Randy as assistant restaurant manager, multiple assistant managers, and then sometimes you had shift leads that would be responsible for different areas of the restaurant, whether it was the grill, fries, drive-through, front cashiers, and then you had crew members. Managers would be dealing with the day-to-day. They are task focused, producing order and consistency. They are the touch point for output. On the opposite side, leadership activities focus on change and movement. Well, what does that mean, Nichole? Management, we're talking about order and consistency. Some of the actions and activities that managers are responsible for in most organizations include planning, budgeting, some organizing, staffing. I guarantee you, Linda didn't do the schedule. It was either Randy who was doing the schedule, or it was one of the assistant managers who was responsible for scheduling the different shifts across several days in the week. On the opposite side, you have leadership. When we think about leadership activities, we're talking about establishing direction, aligning people. Remember the definition of leadership? That keyword of influence is a part of it. Also, a key portion of leadership activities is motivating and inspiring. There are some fantastic people who are managers. There are some leaders out there, high level, but they operate from a position of management. They are so task focused that they often forget that their role is to influence and to motivate and to inspire. If you're in a position that you can motivate, inspire, and influence, the people will do the tasks that need to be done. When I go back to my McDonald's experience, the direction of those franchise stores were the responsibility of Ed as the franchise owner, indeed the leader. I'm going to throw a curveball in here with you. Even though Linda had the title of restaurant manager, she was a leader. So remember, leadership is not always guided by the title. She had the title restaurant manager, but in her role, she was a leader because she was with just the operations of the store. She was guiding the vision. She was establishing the direction, especially the direction of supporting the profitability of the store, looking at ways to improve, making sure that the store was in line with the overall rules, guidelines of the McDonald's Corporation, because franchise owners have to follow those rules. Linda was that guiding force to make sure change was happening, that the team members, crew members were inspired. I know when we talk about leadership and management, a lot of managers think they're leaders and a lot of leaders think they're managers. But what I would caution anyone to just think about if they're in that position is, how do you influence people? Are you focusing on the people and getting the people to move, or are you focusing on how the task can be done? Think about this. When we're talking about leadership and management, this is the key takeaway. Managers do things right. Leaders do the right thing. Thanks for dropping in for this episode of Regardless of.